Kindred Longevity Lifestyle Designers. This is Zach here with secretsoflongevity.com. I'm going to do a Q&A here, and the first question is from Adrian Woods, and he's asking how much I believe in the credibility of the Bible stories about people living to very long lives. You know, you have Methuselah, I think, was the oldest one in the Bible. He lived to be 969, according to the things that they say in there. There's many other different characters in those stories who live for varying amounts of time. It seems, I think, the older it is, the longer they were living, and then progressively their lives got shorter and shorter up until today, when the biblical term is that people generally live to be about 70, which is, a score is 20, so that's 60 plus 10 is 70, and I think at this point people are living past 70, so it seems to me that the Bible was created by certain people at certain times. I believe it was multiple authors, of course, and they were basically, to some degree, creating these stories. There's very little evidence that most of these stories had any actual factual basis in the real world. A lot of these lessons are allegorical and metaphorical and meant to give a lesson about something, some sort of higher value, which is great. However, we can't take these as absolute proof when we read someone live to some great age. Yeah, there's some health information in the Bible as well. Personally, I think you can find better information elsewhere, and I generally don't accept things just from one single book that doesn't have anything else in history backing it up, such as the historians of time periods of Jesus don't have any recollection or written statements about him having actually existed, and same for other parts in the Bible. But that doesn't mean there's absolute proof that these long-lived people didn't exist. It's possible, in terms of anything's possible, but there simply isn't the proof, and there's not much in the ways of their lifestyles that we could copy to try and get health in ourselves. You know, they might have some vague and sort of common sense ideas about health, like to treat others with respect, be a good person, eat natural foods, but in general these people just seem to have lived to be 900 even when they were eating sort of a fairly conventional, albeit very organic and natural diet, but there really wasn't anything they were doing that was that special. So in my mind, certain stories like the stories of Li Cheng-yun, some of these other Chinese Taoists, some of the Indian sages, and even some of the more recent people from North America and even England who were living to be supposedly up to 140 and other sort of ages that are beyond what we currently know is scientifically validated maximal age for humans as of now. So to me, these other stories have more credibility than the ones in the Bible. The next question is from someone who I'll keep anonymous, but they were asking about what sort of exercise program, herbs, and I guess other lifestyle factors I'd recommend for someone currently experiencing depression. And while I really have to emphasize that I'm not going to be answering questions about disease states, whether it's mental or physical, this is a very broad one, and I do have experience with this, so I'll just give my 2 cents on this. Exercise, any type, whatever works for you is what you need to do. Exercise is probably the absolute, one of the top things that have been scientifically proven to be able to reverse depression in terms of, you know, simply getting blood flowing through your body, you feel more alive. You don't feel as depressed, as in slow and low energy and everything that depression brings. When you exercise, this obviously gets lifted up. Now, the desired exercise can be hindered by depression, and so you also have to approach it from the dietary side. You need to get the longer chain omega-3s, in my opinion. If you have been getting regular ALA, plant-based omega-3s, then you should look to get these longer chain ones from either krill oil. If you want a plant-based, you should go to the algae and the purslane, which is the common lawn weed, which is very high in EPA and DHA if you're eating enough of it in salads. Not many people are aware of that. It's a land plant that has EPA and DHA. It's quite incredible. Most experts seem to forget about this. Then, of course, if you're eating fish, you're getting it. However, I don't recommend eating fish if you have depression because of the mercury levels, even in the smaller ones. Make sure that you're eating a large volume of plants in your diet, and any animal products you're consuming are, of course, free-range, grass-fed, pasture-fed, whatever that animal's meant to be doing is doing that. albeit it's on a farm, so it's doing to the best of its ability it could be doing if it was in the wild. Even though most farm animals don't exist in the wild, they've been bred to be a certain way and can only exist on the farm scenario. But whatever you're doing, I recommend not going overboard with the animal products, because this can have a sluggish effect on the body, which in some ways could hinder and increase depression, or basically won't help you get over it. So you want to be getting enough calories, you want to be exercising, you want to be including those longer chain omega-3s, and specifically for types of herbs, I'd recommend any of the Shen herbs that are very elevating to the emotions. Number one is reishi. A good high-quality reishi extract, such as the one from Hyperion Herbs, which you can find at the link below, is probably the best thing in my opinion. Taking very significant amounts of that will start to bring up these things in you that need to be addressed. It seems to have that effect. The wild reishi is even more so, so if you can find and hunt your own wild reishi and make a tea out of that, that's going to be great. Some other Shen building herbs, of course, are schizandra berry. Another one is going to be ginkgo biloba. That's not a tonic herb, so you don't want to take it for too long and in too high a dose. You want to be very careful about dosage and study that yourself. Basically, when I take it and I have it in the loose form, I take a tablespoon and pour maybe a cup or more of hot water over it, make a tea of that. And don't drink that all at once, drink that in 2 portions in the day. And that's sort of a standard dose for someone my size, which is 145 pounds roughly right now. And that does open the capillaries to the brain. You're going to have more nutrients getting to the brain, and to some degree you're also going to be increasing your neurotransmitter production. You also need to make sure you're getting plenty of probiotics in the form of ideally fermented foods, because the gut is where most of your neurotransmitters, or a lot of the major ones, are created and produced. About 80% of your serotonin is produced in the gut, so you need a healthy gut to have a healthy emotions and a healthy brain to some extent, which will lead to absence of depression and these other sort of mental issues that seem to be very common these days, unfortunately. Some other great Shen building herbs are things like bacopa and gotu kola. Those are very similar in terms of their effects. Either one would work. And finally, I'd also recommend pine pollen, because it has that testosterone and androgen building quality to it. Whether you want to use the tincture or the powder, you can find a link below to get some of that. But that depression and anything else that's very, you could think of as being low energy or low qualities in the body, it's going to be from a lack of drive in your life. So the testosterone and these other things are going to be very building to that. And that just brought something else to mind that I forgot to mention, is Mucunia pruriens. And this could be taken together with the pine pollen powder to elevate dopamine and testosterone together. They work very synergistically. One will bring the other up. And Mucunia will increase dopamine production. And dopamine is very much connected with that feeling of having a drive in life, having a passion and goal-oriented existence, which is often a case that people with depression aren't going to be feeling that drive to succeed in life, and they might be having the absence of a direction, and this can help them get to a point of being able to create a direction. But the aspect of creating a direction is going to come from the conscious intent to actually start to have a direction in life and choose what it is you want to be passionate about. Just find out what you're passionate about. You might have a time of exploration where you're just sort of looking into different avenues of what you are attracted to, and then develop a way of life around that, whether it's your career or it's just a hobby and you're working in some other field. But really your work should be your passion, so begin getting onto the path of making that something that you want to do for the rest of your life, and best of luck with that. Now I apologize if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but Ulf from Germany is asking about what I use on my skin, or whether these two things work, olive oil and flax oil, on the skin to make them look healthy and radiant, if these are things that are good to use or if there's better things. And first of all, say I would definitely not use, either topically or internally, flax products, just because of the high phytoestrogen content. I go into that in other videos, so if you search Secrets of Longevity Phytoestrogens, you're going to get a series I did where I talked about that. I think it was later on in the series I actually started talking about the phytoestrogens, so that might be parts 4, 5, and 6, or 5 and 6, where I'm actually talking about phytoestrogens and their effect on the body. So yeah, just avoid the flax oil in my opinion. Olive oil is much lower in phytoestrogens, but of course it's a plant food, so it does have a certain amount of them. And yes, you can use this on your skin. A lot of long-lived people have used it on their skin. Like Bernardo, who a lot of people have seen on the internet talking about raw food, and he's almost approaching 110 now. He uses olive oil on his skin, so maybe there's something going on with olive oil I'm not aware of. I know topically on the top of the head it will prevent and can help reverse balding because of certain DHT inhibiting qualities to it, so that can definitely be used in that way. But just for regular moisturization, it really does depend on what your intent is to have happen on the skin. There's different skin types, it can get pretty complicated. If you have sort of aging skin, you have wrinkles, or you want to prevent wrinkles, if you have any sort of scarring, discoloration, or blotchiness, probably the best thing to use is Rosa rubiginosa, which is rosehip seed oil. And I always talk about the essential oils from the aromatherapist, which you can only get in Canada, to my knowledge. But they also have a Rosa rubiginosa that you could use if you know where to find those bottles with the orange label and blue cobalt bottle. Often they're selling in the same stores that they sell the essential oils. They sell this carrier oil, which in and of itself is a medicinal oil that you can use topically of the Rosa. It also goes by the name Rosa mosqueta. But it's probably the most powerful oil for dissolving scars and generally have an anti-aging effect. And that's just a single oil. Anytime you're going for a blend of things, which is another option, you want to make sure that all the ingredients are organic. There's no fillers, preservatives, and all that synthetic junk that just simply does not need to be in there. And if you want something cheap and easy to use, I personally think coconut oil is the best way to go. It's a lot more similar in terms of the fats your skin needs, which is the saturated fats your skin's mostly made out of, that help build and rejuvenate it. It also has a slight antibacterial effect, so it's good in terms of if you're in an environment where that could be present, it will keep things from growing on your skin if you happen to be susceptible to fungus or other issues like that. Now the other part of your question was about shaving and what do I use or what do I recommend. And again, you're dealing with the skin, which is an acid mantle. Ideally it's got a pH that's very acidic, and you want to keep it that way. So any soap you use or shaving product you want to use needs to be on the acidic side of the pH. So if you're using, first of all, an entirely organic, natural product without, again, those synthetic additives to it, it really doesn't matter what you use as long as it doesn't have a very rich lather. So if it's just sort of like a creamy lather, that's going to generally indicate that that soap is more on the acidic side, which is going to be fine on your skin. If it's very foamy in terms of its lather, it tends to be more alkaline, and that's going to strip the acidity from your skin and cause issues down the road like dryness or susceptibility to problems that are going to lead to general skin complaints. So yeah, the creamy lather that you want to look for, and then also entirely natural products used in it. Personally, I just use a bar of soap that I have in the shower. I think it is specifically for shaving. It's like a hemp-based thing that I got in my stocking this year, possibly. Can't remember when I got it, but yeah, it's on there, and I shave in the shower just because I find that easier and more time efficient to do it that way. And I'll shave whatever's the most easiest to shave, and then I'll touch it up in the mirror once I get out of the shower, because I obviously can't see exactly what it is I'm doing, but the parts that you can feel, you do go for that. The next question is from the Wary Traveler, who's asking about sugar addiction and what to do in the case of an intense addiction to sugar. This definitely does fall under the category of what I talk about, so I'm going to address this. I'm not sure what your overall diet looks like, but you're going to start to want to look at doing a complete dietary overhaul, because this is a macronutrient you're talking about, and you're going to really want to focus in on getting this overall picture of diet sort of corrected. So if you're consuming animal products, you're going to start to want to lean more towards the fats and proteins, which are going to be more balancing to the blood sugar, more sustained energy. It doesn't have these big up and down spikes like consuming excess fruit would have, like consuming excess grains would have, and certain people just run better on higher protein. And if you want to do that as a vegetarian or vegan, by all means go ahead and do that. things like sunware, algae, sprout green juice. These are all great things for balancing the blood sugar. I've got links below to sunware protein, which is what I'm using on my bodybuilding program right now. It's a great raw vegan fermented sprouted raw protein powder that's very digestible, very absorbable, very high in protein. You can get deals on that too, by the way, if you're getting them in a 3-pack. So using protein to stabilize the blood sugar when you're hungry, if you are trying to stick to a sort of a meal plan of 3 meals a day or whatever, protein is going to be able to get you towards that next meal. So chlorella tablets, spirulina tablets, these things, taking these in between meals will balance that blood sugar right out. The other thing you could do, and this is definitely recommended, is to eat 5 or 6 meals a day throughout the day. So this is going to increase your metabolism as well, so if you're wanting to lose weight, it'll help with that. If you're on a bodybuilding program, it's going to help with that. But if you're already very thin, I'd recommend not doing that, because you're going to just keep your metabolism fast, and if you're wanting to gain weight or basically not speed it up anymore so that you're losing weight, you're going to want to just stick to that 2 or 3 meals a day plan. And if that's the case, you want to use protein and in some cases some fat to balance that blood sugar. Just play around with things to find out what works for you. You're probably going to want to go for a period of very low sugar, use things like stevia, xylitol, and other sweeteners that don't have a caloric value or much of a caloric value at all to really cut out that addiction. Of course, at first, probably if you do need to go to a sugar, go to things like honey, fruit, even maple syrup if you really need to, but although that's a cooked sugar, which is a little harsher on the system in my experience than something like raw organic honey. And the final question for today is from Travis, and he's asking about raw dairy products, and he heard in the Great Health Debate that just took place that Gabriel Cousins was referencing that dairy products and people consuming it, they get higher levels of radioactive toxins in it. So I think it was depleted uranium and other things like that were showing up in the breast milk of mothers, and their babies were getting some sort of thing that happened down the road. I believe Dr. Cousins was referring to specifically cows on the eastern seaboard that were consuming, obviously, grass that had gotten a slight bit of uranium or depleted uranium or some sort of radioactive toxin widespread across this area of the U.S. They were all consuming it, and then it obviously gets concentrated into the milk. Mothers drink the milk, and obviously the babies get it even more concentrated. So this is a bad thing when it's concentrated that much. This is immediately after Chernobyl, which is a massive nuclear disaster, and while at this time in Earth's history we have more nuclear waste in our atmosphere and all around us than ever before, we're in a very fortunate area of the world which has less than certain other areas of the world, but of course it is there, and we're always interacting with it. And personally, I don't think this is going to be a problem unless it is a very accumulated area, such as where this was happening right after Chernobyl. And by the way, Chernobyl is long since passed, but yes, we do have elevated depleted uranium from the wars that are going on, and just all the nuclear activity since the mid-20th century that has been going on. So, yes, limited animal product consumption is, in my opinion, ideal. However, on sort of an interval basis, you can do it regularly if it's something that's in your budget, but on a sporadic basis, at least be taking designer detoxification products such as ADYA Clarity and zeolites. Personally, I think Health Force nutritional zeolites are the best out there because it's the best value for the quantity you're getting. And also ADYA Clarity, I've got links below for those. And these are going to be ideal because they have a way of trapping up and removing harmlessly radioactive compounds, which things like clay, just regular bentonite clay, and chlorophyll don't have as good of an ability to attach to and carry out of the body. We've got these sort of more advanced forms of cleansing for these more advanced forms of toxins that we're being exposed to these days, unfortunately. So even if you are vegan and not consuming dairy or meat products, you need to be sporadically going through these things to make sure that you aren't accumulating these heavy and very dangerous toxins in your body. Obviously, if you visit a developing nation or somewhere in the Middle East, you're going to need to take more of it. If you do a lot of flying, you're going to need to take more of it. If you're basically anywhere near nuclear facilities, you're going to to be taking more of it. So with that, that wraps up the questions, and as always, post questions below, but I really must implore you to focus on questions related to longevity. I'm not going to answer questions about specific diseases or issues that people have going on a personal level. If you need help with that, by all means, I do have knowledge about that and I can help you, but you'll have to set up a phone consultation. You can check out the links below for that. And remember to check out the links below for the other things I've mentioned in this video if you want to try them out yourself or there's something you want to use. And with that, I'm going to say take care and embrace life without limits.